welcome back to another edition of Dragon Storms, Myths, Legends, and Lore. Sorry it's been a week or two past our hopefully 1 week release date, but our tenured host Tony and his beautiful wife took a vacation to somewhere where it was warm and beautiful. I know, I saw pictures, and so he deserved to take some time off and rest and enjoy and regroup and regenerate. And while he was away, he did a bunch of research on our topics for today, which is the Holy Grail and the Shroud of Turin. I always pronounce it wrong. The
Turin.
Shroud of Turin,
Turin.
yeah. I want Turin. But everybody knows this. This is some incredible stuff. History and research gone into this thing, like amazing stuff. I'm no expert, which is awesome because we do have an expert here. And Bill's kind of an quasi-expert on this particular subject too. He had a friend who is an expert, and we couldn't get him on. We were trying to get him on, but we couldn't get him. He's a doctor. It's hard to find. But Anthony is kind of an expert on this stuff. He even has a real replica of the Shroud. So we're going to talk a little about the Holy Grail and the Shroud and all the stuff that he dug out while he was on vacation. He probably shouldn't have been working, but he was. I guess this type of stuff he does for fun. He enjoys. So whatever. So but before we get into that, we have a contest to give away. We have a coin to give away, which is awesome because I have one of these coins. I'm just saying he gave me one. It's awesome. I have it in a very special place, and it's dope. I know, Bill, you're jealous that I have one of these coins. Anthony, feel free to tell them about the coin, what it is, and then say one last time, give the riddle that like 20 people solved, and then we're going to do a random drawing and give it away.
Okay. So what we're doing for this giveaway, and we extended the giveaway a little bit because there was a little bit of a lower turnout, and as Bill had told me last time, he didn't think a lot of the people who originally did the riddle knew there was going to be another one. So I gave everybody a little bit more time. So we have the it's a Templar or a Crusade era coin from the time when they were having issues with the Pope and with the King of France, and they were pressing and printing some of their own funds, which is going to lead us right into what we're doing tonight, believe it or not. So it was actually perfectly that we extended this a little bit. And the riddle, I'm sorry if you bear with me again, because of course I don't have it up. I never do. It's coming up. Okay.
See, Bill, I'm not the only one who doesn't come prepared. It's not just me.
I was just going to announce the winner, but all right. So ready? So this is the riddle that we had done. And an image of a king through radiation doth sing, a graven mark, Clement declared a lark, a story of the risen sign, at first in France a gift so fine, but earlier than the first a stony shrine. And the reason why this is such a you get it now, Bill, right?
Yeah, now that I know the answer, I'm like, God, that was easy. Now I know the answer.
I went down the road of Clement of Alexandria, and it just got me. That's where I started, and I just was on the wrong path all along.
Right.
Down the wrong Qumran cave into the Dead Sea Scrolls. But
yeah,
so
right,
it is
exactly.
It's the Shroud of Turin. So, and if you pick it apart a little bit, of course, Jesus is a king, and we're going to talk about the images that were left behind on the shroud and how it is a radioactive or radiation type of a radiance, and it's a graven mark. That's simple. The Clement
ended up in France, right? It ended up in France.
Ended up in France as a gift because it was held by private families for almost all time up until very recently. But Clement, because of the issues that the Templar were having with France and with the Pope because of France, he said that a lot of their holy relics were fake. So and that kind of led us into it. So what we did is we had I think I had about 28 correct answers, and I just did a randomized pick. And I did want to mention that the gentleman who won the first contest, he actually sent me the right answer on this one too. So he's a sharp character.
Yeah.
So I don't remember his name right off the top of my head, but he definitely did a good job on both of these. So
probably your son trolling. He's just
somebody did. One of his friends actually did that when I released the second book, and like on the first day wrote this ridiculously great review. I'm like, wow, somebody read the whole book already. And then I found out like a week and a half later, Dragonstorm Lover is one of his friends busting my chops. But anyway, so the winner is Josh Christian. So you're going to get notified by email and you'll provide me with the mailing address. I'm not a serial killer, so you can give me your address, and I will send you the stuff. And on the last contest, I sent out a copy of the signed book, and so you can see we've
Dude,
got the
that's a
Dragon.
hell of a giveaway, man. Like the person who wins that is hit the jackpot. He sends me shirts, the signed books, both signed books, shirts, like cups. Okay, and that coin. That coin, I don't know what that coin costs, but I'm gonna go out there. It's probably, it ain't cheap. I just know it's probably 50, 75, $100. I don't know, whatever it is, but it's not that cheap for one of them coins. They're not that rare. And look at this, by the way. Huh?
There you go. That's old school, baby.
I put it on yesterday and just never took it off. I'm like,
Yeah.
You're right.
Hey, you might have gotten a lot more viewers. I don't know.
That's funny. He's
Actually,
like,
we had a really great turnout. I just wanted to mention that we were up to over 5,000 views since the posting of the last episode, which I think is only like 3 weeks. So it's a great job.
Yeah, not even. It's like 2 weeks.
People are really interested in this topic too that we're going to do today.
Yeah, let's jump in.
Watch for your email, and I'll send you out a great package of stuff, including the coin that you so correctly answered and earned. So
And
good.
deserve.
And I will post a new. I'm posting a new riddle. Probably within 4 or 5 days. I have most of it written out already. So. And for that riddle, I think we're going to do the dinosaur tooth I showed everyone on the last episode. So
That's cool.
what I'm going to do, I'm going to help everybody out, but I'm going to do a riddle that coincides with whatever the item that we're giving away, so you can kind of work off of that too. This way, you don't
that's
get
cool.
wrong direction. Okay.
Yeah. That's cool. Is it me or does Bill look almost biblical right now? Like the way he looks like a biblical character. Like you could be Moses or something right now with your hair so white and your beard, and I'm like, this guy, he could be. Anyway, so we're on.
Whizzing.
Heaven than I was a week ago.
We all are, bro. Don't feel bad. We're all
Some people are further than they were a week ago.
further away or closer, right? Yeah, saints.
Away, yeah. Depends on what
I was in paradise a couple of hours ago, so
That's right. Yeah, you went a couple of steps back, but we went forward. So wait, we're gonna talk about the Holy Grail first.
I think let's do the shroud first. And the reason
All right,
I
let's
want to do
talk
the shroud first is because part of my research, and we'll get to this at the end of our discussion of it, led me into something that was really, really interesting regarding the Templar, and we're kind of on that Templar streak with these holy relics. So let's work off of that, and then we'll go into the Grail, because the Grail has a lot of legend regarding the Knights Templar, and we can finish up with that then, okay?
Let's rock and roll.
All right, so I just wanted to the shroud, just so everyone understands what it is. A shroud is a wrapping that when someone passes away, and they still use them today, they would wrap the body in this, usually a fine cloth, whether it be a linen or weaved. In this particular case, it was a herringbone weaved cloth, and it wasn't a cheap item to get something that was fine. So if you think of the different levels of burials in ancient Egypt, where as people became more important and had more money, they were able to really improve the quality of the items that they, and even today, I mean, it's the same, it's not an odd idea. So to begin with, the shroud again is something that was wrapped around someone who passed away. And what makes this so amazing right off the top is that it is believed to be what wrapped Jesus when he was taken down from the cross. It bears an image of an entire body front and back, because it was, I believe it was 4 feet thick by 14 feet long. So basically what they did is they laid him on it, and then they would wrap him across his body. It is a very, very interesting artifact, beyond the religious significance, of course, which is tremendous, because it is, from what I understand, the most studied interdisciplinary wise ancient artifact ever. And what I mean by that is, it's not just theologians and people who are of a religious inspired science background who want to see this or want to work with this and find out what's going on. It has been investigated by everyone from NASA scientists, Los Alamos scientists who work on nuclear energy, the rocket scientists, to people who work with blood and want to look at the aspects of the blood samples that are on there, to artists who have investigated whether they were art, whether they were paint pigments and things like that. So it has been studied by so many different types of intellectuals and researchers that it is probably can be classified as one of the most studied, when you look at it in that way, artifact ever.
So it's in a museum in France or a private collection?
Right now it's in Turin, Italy. Yes.
Oh, it's in Italy. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
A museum, right?
Yeah, I believe
property of the Catholic Church, right?
It is property of
okay.
the Catholic Church. It wasn't, though, for a very long time. Let's see. It really became. It was given as a gift to the Pope. If anyone who wants to know exact dates can look this stuff up. A lot of times I don't have the. But it was in the 1980s or 1970s. It was given as a gift. It was held by private families, starting out to its appearance in France.
It was in the House of Savoy, and I think they gave it to him in 1983.
Okay, there you go. Thank you.
Would you mind standing up and showing it to us right now? So before we dive into it, would you mind showing it to us?
So let's take a look at it. So basically, and another really interesting tidbit, which I didn't know myself, is you can't actually see the image. So what I'm going to show you is a representation, but it's enhanced so that you can see really the image a little bit more. The image itself on the original, you have to stand something like 8 feet back before it actually, you're able to see. Or which in and of itself is, there's so many anomalies with this piece of cloth that are unexplainable. So, excuse me, it's very big. I'm going to stand up here. So let's see which one.
And the lighting has to be just right. And I'm trying to figure out, from a scientific aspect, how this could happen. And do you think? Okay, here's my belief: is that with this is that. It was divine intervention. God wanted his imprint on that cloth. But you look at it from a biological standpoint, was it the gases escaping his body over 3 days?
No, it definitely was not. What it was a tremendous burst of energy. Okay.
Yeah.
And in fact, it has been proven that it could only be, and if I just reach over and check my notes here, I wanted to give you the exact number.
That's exactly what it looks like, huh? But
it was
it's enhanced.
6.4 gigawatts of energy expelled in order to create this type of an image like this. So here, I can point that a little bit. I'm sorry, my camera's tracking me. All right. So that right there is, of course, the face. And you can follow along with.
Wild, bro. That's wild.
The face there. So I'm going to roll it as I go so you can see. So you have the shoulders, okay? Now the shoulders, upon study, we can't really see here, but upon study by people who work with anatomy and doctors and stuff like that, they were able to see trauma to the shoulders and trauma from the time of death, which was explained as having to carry the cross. So what we're looking for when we're trying to prove the providence or the veracity of this particular item, we're looking for things because there's such an explicit description in the Bible. We're looking for things that coincide with the description in the Bible. So we have an injury to the shoulders. They're having to carry
the thorny crown, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. So you start at the top of the crown. So all these things like this are injuries caused by the crown. Now, there's no doubt, and I pretty much everything I've read, it's admitted that this is some type of an image of a man who was crucified in the first century. Now, what you have anomalies that don't occur with most people who were crucified by the Romans in the first century. One of them is the thorn of crowns. That was not something common they did. It was done to mock him.
Yeah, he's the king.
Jews. So it was done in a mocking way. So that was one of the things that were added on. Injury to the shoulder. Yes, convicts were always made to carry their crucifix to the point where it was going to be seated in the ground and they were going to be put on it. So that we would see maybe on anyone.
Evidence of a cheek that is swollen more than the other, like he was beaten.
Right.
Possibly a broken nose.
Where is that? I'm just trying to keep track of it there.
Poor Jesus.
Yeah. Well, it's something like, and I'll give you the exact number if you don't know, Bill. It was something like 472, topical injuries.
Lacerations from the
Lacerations from the
whipping.
whips. So as we move down, you can get to the point where, let me see where the hands are. It's even hard for me to see, believe it or not, unless I get further away. Even from here, you guys might even be able to see his hands faster than I can. Let's see. Yeah, I'm down already past on the pelvis. So
Yeah, that's why they show those negatives so often.
right, because it really gives you a little bit better. Yeah, right here. So right here, which my hand is not in there, is it? There you go. So there are the hands. I don't know. You can see the fingers kind of right there, and they're crossed over the body. And again, it's not a lot of people when they think of crucifixion, and part of it is because of the the anomaly of stigmata, which is its own subject that maybe we'll discuss sometime. But that's where people suddenly appear with the marks of the nails, because when they crucified someone, they were nailed to a cross. The body is not strong enough in the hand bones and the feet bones to sustain a 160, 170 pound person up on a cross. So where they would nail these big nails, these 9-inch nails, they would nail them either to the wrist, right under the palm, not into the hand, and that's where they would do it. And they would also do it around the ankle. So they would have to nail into a part of the body that was structurally sound that could hold someone for 2 or 3 days. I mean, they would leave these people up there for 3 days to die. And most of them died.
That's a horrible death, man. That's
horrible
Would rip right out. So if they did do the palms, they also did the wrists and
Okay.
tied them too.
So again, we have something that's maybe not Jesus specific, but is historically accurate regarding because you got to remember you're arguing two things here, and from our standpoint, the validity of whether this is real or not, I really didn't want to get into. What I wanted to get into was the pros and cons or the proofs back and forth. So you're actually fighting two proofs. You're fighting, is this an authentic funerary shroud from the first century? Number one, okay. And then number two, did it belong to Jesus Christ? So there's actually two different arguments to be made once you get past the fact that you accept that this is a funerary shroud. So we're not only looking for accuracy.
What are those prominent features? What are those prominent part, like the dark things there? I'm looking at on the side, like is that just kind of what?
That's the show. Remember, now it was folded, so this is probably like where the elbow.
Folded. Oh, right. That's what I thought.
I'm at the shoulder here. Yeah, so this might be wrapped around kind of like that.
Yeah. That's what I thought, but I wasn't sure, and I wanted to know. That's all. Yeah.
Now,
all right. And I was
Gunner, if you look low, you'll see a piercing where they would have pierced his side. Okay.
Right. There is a spot right here.
Correct. Now, that looks like it's on the left side, but you got to imagine the shroud is on him, so it is a mirror image.
Right.
Yeah. Looking in a mirror.
Yeah.
They would put it on the right side, and they tested that. It's not just consistent with blood, but blood and a watered down fluid.
Right.
Which explains the Bible. The Bible says water came out of that.
You see, that's the hands. I was wrong with the hands. I couldn't even see very well. See where I'm lifting up right now?
So it looks
like they're crossed right there.
The left hand, in reality, it's the left hand over the right hand.
Yeah.
Because it's a mirror.
And you can see the wrist, the injury to the wrist, and everything there.
I'm going to get into a lot more.
His fingers is the weird thing.
Right.
I mean,
you able to see that there?
This is not natural for a shroud to be like to do the negative, have a negative on a shroud. This is
no.
I mean,
this is from a tremendous burst of energy, like an X-ray. Think of an X-ray.
Yeah.
So it was the same kind of image. Now,
further backed up by the fact that you seem to see like skeletal portions through the body.
Yeah, I mean, this is God. It's like when God, like Jesus left the building, and whatever happened in those 3 days in that tomb, God was like, boom, you know what I'm saying? And he left a freaking like a print of it. It's incredible.
I heard a
priest. Somebody trying very, very hard to give that impression.
Right.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
God took the first selfie.
Yeah, right?
There are definitely a lot of forgeries of these. That's why I think it's so important to. So one of the issues regarding the validity of the shroud, and it really is one of the only ones, is the carbon dating, and we'll discuss that in a few minutes. But if the carbon dating arrives at, like I think it was like 1300, I think it was about 1300 AD is where the carbon dating, and there's a reason why it did that. But let's say it was at that particular period in time, Jesus was being represented as very in art and stuff as very meek, very slight person, maybe 5'6", 5'7", and that would have been, if someone had created this forgery in 1300 AD, that would have been the visual that they were working with to create this, right? There's no other pictures. Based upon that, this figure is over 6 feet tall. It would not have been in. It would have been in the forgery. It would have been to make it proper to what their image at that particular time was of Jesus. If you guys are following what I'm saying, it would have been to make someone of a slighter stature. And the fact that it is over 6 feet tall does
On the
not
real shroud, on the original shroud, he's over 6 feet.
right. And Jesus.
When I saw a replica, what struck me right away was the thickness and the girth of this guy. It wasn't emaciated.
Right.
What did they carbon date though? When you were talking about carbon dating, you did talk about carbon dating the shroud?
Yes. So basically, let me finish this. I just want to point out one other thing. We can come back to it after, and then let's get to the carbon dating, because it really is the one thing that needs to be defeated, I guess, if you're trying to prove that this is valid shroud from the first century. The legs of this figure are not broken. It was the common practice of the Romans to break the legs of the crucified prisoners, and the reason they would do that is because after 3 days of starving and not having water and all and bleeding, they wanted to then speed up the process.
The death. Yeah.
They would break the legs. And it is a known fact. We have much archaeological and historical evidence to that fact that was the standard maneuver for the Romans in a crucifixion execution. The Bible, though, tells us they did not break the legs, which was an anomaly in their normal procedure, and was so much so different that it was mentioned, that it was enough to be mentioned in the Bible. So this particular, the replica, the shrouded man, the crucified man, has no breaks in his legs. Okay, and it's a little bit difficult to see from this standpoint here, but this is pretty much where my hands, they've gone away. Yeah, there you go. It really is this is to scale, so it is a big cloth. Yeah. But there are no breaks in the legs. Both legs were solid. Okay. And again, it's an important thing that someone who was making a forgery from that time period may not have known to do. So based upon,
of course not.
So let's talk about the carbon dating. What they decided to do was, after many years of private families owning this, it caught the eye of a lot of people when some imaging was done in the 30s. There were some pictures taken. And then again in the 60s and 70s, I believe. They put together a whole group of investigators, and most of them were not theologians. Most of them were scientists, regular straight scientists, artists, things like that. What they decided to do is in 1988, which is about 10 years after the Shroud of Turin research team, which was 78. Okay. What the 1978 team resolved was they couldn't explain how it was made, and they could not replicate or forge the shroud. Yeah. So no one could recreate what was there, and no one could explain its form. So that's huge, right?
Yeah, that's huge.
So now the church, when did the church take ownership, Bill? You said it was what,
83?
83, right. So now the carbon dating was done in 88. And it was done in association with the British Museum, and it was done by 3 different facilities. And I'm going to put up pictures in this that people are going to be able to see how they actually sampled the shroud, because it is at the heart of why this is probably an error. They took they took from a small corner at the bottom left, I believe, of the shroud,
I think
and
it
they
was the bottom
snipped.
right, but yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter. But the reason, let me just say, anybody who doesn't know, what carbon dating is you take a sample of the item you're trying to gauge the date on. It destroys it, which is why we can't just take the shroud and do the whole shroud and carbon date it. The piece that you take is going to be destroyed in the process. It has to do with burning and the gases that are emitted and measuring the carbon half
The
life or
rate,
something.
the rate that the carbon goes. Yeah,
And it's can be fairly accurate. I mean, I've never questioned
it
carbon
can
dating.
be, but it also can be very inaccurate too. There's a
And
lot of debate over that.
there is because there are two things. Just like with DNA, the sample can be contaminated,
Tainted.
right?
Hmm.
And the other thing is the sample has to be a picture of the whole, which is the problem that we have here. It could be
Hmm.
contaminated too, but this particular sample, the shroud has survived at least 3 fires, and it may be more. And part of the damage that was caused by those fires was a fraying and a burning of the edges of the shroud. The shroud was repaired. It was repaired, and experts in textiles and fabric have said you can see where they used cotton fiber threads to actually almost microscopically, like with a magnifying
Yeah, if I
glass. I
can,
can
Yeah,
picture
yeah,
some old woman sitting there for years and
weaving.
weaving a new piece in to square out the piece,
Yeah,
the shroud. So where did they take their samples from? They took them from one of these repaired spots where there's
right.
a definite differentiation between the fabric.
I mean,
Um,
a lot can
the
happen in
university
2,000
did the
years.
study. The
well,
university
let,
trying to
okay.
swear they did not see any evidence of weaving. That's their assertion.
That's their
Right,
assertion.
They did take
but
it from
it
the edge, and originally they said they'd take it from 7 places. They only took it from one.
right, right,
And not only
and
that, but some of these liberal universities, they don't want Jesus to be real. A lot of these people who are involved in this, they go, we're going to prove Jesus is a fake and it's not real. God is fake. He's not real. So they'll lie and say and whatever who knows. I don't trust them.
Right. There's motives to lie
no.
both ways.
The
Yeah.
reason I don't trust them beyond the obvious, like you said, they said they want to take more samples and they didn't, is the British Museum would not release the raw data on the analysis for 27 years. They
There you go.
refused to release the raw data.
Why?
No one could reproduce scientific. If you remember from school, scientific experimentation requires certain steps, and one of them is the ability to
Replicate. Yeah.
redo to replicate the experiment.
Yeah.
Right?
You can't do it.
Without the raw data, you cannot compare or contrast and decide if you can replicate or if it was done properly. So it was actually a lawsuit. And I don't have too much details on it, but I know that it was 27 years. It took them 27 years to get the raw data from the dating.
Yeah, and God
Um,
only knows what they changed or hid or whatever from 20 and 27 years. They probably doctored it up to whatever whatever. And then you could
well,
just say, well, show me how it was done then, because I'm just curious to know.
right. Well, the other thing too is maybe in the raw data they were able to see that the textile was different in different areas in their sample. So
Exactly.
they may have been able, they may have gotten several different readings, or they may have gotten inconclusive readings. So if I take a sample that's got meshed together from the first century and with 1300 AD, so now I've got one sample, but it includes data from two different time periods. What's the machine going to tell me when I run it through? Did it tell them both time periods and they took the later? You see
Hmm.
what I mean? So
Or
that
did
the
it
raw
say
data
one?
would be important for that, right? Exactly. Um, so the issue with that is that's the big issue that needed the hurdle that needed to go through. Now they just did a new test. It was very recently. It was called the wide angle X-ray scattering. Okay, and it does away with the carbon dating contamination issues and the dates that were presented. And lo and behold, it comes out with a first century dating time period. This is new
Go
technology.
And
figure.
consistent with the fabrication of it. Like the fibers that are used, it was done
Yeah.
by hand. It was done in a herringbone pattern. All these
Right?
things are consistent with first century.
You're
With first
Even
right.
though it was cheap materials, it was done in an expensive way.
Yeah, hand by hand.
Man,
In 1300, they used a weaving loom or something, probably, right?
yeah,
By
but the
1300, they
weaving
used a loom.
process was very expensive, which is consistent with the rich guy taking him down and
Right,
buying
Joseph of
him.
Yeah.
Arimathea. I was going to get to that as well because that actually leads to us to the Grail at some point too. So, um, but the interesting part about the carbon dating, and the reason why I say don't discount carbon dating is because the carbon dating that they found the actual dates that were the result of their test coincide with one of the fires from that time from the shroud. So they've got consistency with dates from the carbon dating, saying that yes, that the repairs that were supposedly occurred when there was a fire, they do match up with here. So and actually, I think it can be used as another component to the
Positive
veracity.
argument.
Right.
Yeah. And now, could you imagine if your family was tasked with, think about this. Imagine if you or your family was tasked with holding the shroud, right? So this is you, and then you have a fire. Think about this. So this is the most amazing and incredible item on the planet, barring the Ark, the Holy Grail, things like that. This is the shroud. This is proof of Jesus' existence. He lived, died, this whole amazing. So you are tasked with holding it. Then you have a fire and you damage it, right? For the
Yeah,
next,
to be fair, they had it contained in like a silver casket, so that preserved it. But the
It
silver
did.
melted and damaged
or
it.
it got hot. Let's say silver gets really hot and it kind of browns the edges of it
That's
and burns
exactly what
it.
happened. Yeah.
Sure.
So now you're guilty as hell, and your life existence for the next 50 years of life on Earth, you're just like, I gotta fix this freaking thing, man. I gotta fix this thing.
Gunnar, if it
So
makes
you're
you feel
hiring
better,
somebody, huh?
if it makes you feel better, they say this family would cut little pieces of it off and give it to like their royal friends and stuff.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to find scraps of that in carbon dating.
I'm
but
sure. I'm sure
Yeah,
there are. I'm sure there are. And
they're
there's
out
and
there.
I just wanted to mention, which I read in one of the things, there is a burial garment from Egypt because people were commenting, it stayed too well preserved for too long, which is actually 5,000 years old. It's called the Tarkan dress, and I'll probably post a picture of it. It is in as good shape as the shroud, and it's from 5,000 years ago. Not 2,000 years ago.
Yeah,
So
proof
it's
things can
definitely
survive.
not. Yeah, things can survive in the right atmosphere. So Joseph of Arimathea, Joseph is his name has been mentioned a lot. If you guys even remember back to the Last Crusade, the Indiana Jones movie, they talk about the tablet that's going to lead to the Grail, and Joseph is even mentioned in that, in where the Grail had gone to. So Joseph was tasked with two things, and I think he was the uncle. Was he the uncle of Jesus, or he was somehow related, maybe distantly, to Jesus?
Well,
So because
he had a brother named Joseph and a father
no,
named Joseph.
father named Joseph. Yeah, no, this is Joseph of Arimathea. It was a wealthy businessman, and due to the Jewish religion, he already had his tomb made because of the time constraints. When you pass away, you have to be buried by sundown, which Bill had mentioned. So he had an expensive, nice shroud made for his burial, and he already had a tomb. And that's actually he gave Jesus both of those. So this would be Joseph of Arimathea's shroud that he had made for him. And
Mm.
Jesus was wrapped in that. And, upon rising or whatever anomaly occurred with Jesus, without getting into a religious argument here, I just want to talk about the scientific end of it which is something radioactive occurred to this shroud, which took a picture, if for lack of a better term,
Yeah,
of
took
the
a
person who was
picture.
wrapped in it. And I love the tie-in from last week because we return again to the radiation we talked about in the Ark of the
Ark of the
Covenant,
The
Covenant.
arc, yeah.
tremendous energy being produced.
God
And
does amazing
all of these
stuff.
things, everything keeps talking about this energy and these different ways that either radioactive or some other energy forces have been used through history that we have no knowledge of at all. The knowledge of it has been
Right.
completely lost. I
Yeah, and
think.
there's really no
Um,
knowledge that radiation can do what we're saying it did to the shroud. But this comes
right.
about because, Gunnar, there was no pigment whatsoever found in the shroud. No evidence of paint other than iron oxide, but that was found consistently throughout the shroud. So they think it was more likely to do with the fabrication of the entire thing. And the only time
Right.
they had higher concentrations were in the places that look like blood.
Yeah,
If you
blood.
have blood, obviously you'd have it. So that
You
was
have
consistent.
iron.
It was
Yeah.
heavier there, but consistent everywhere
Yeah.
throughout. The places where his
Well,
face is, there's no evidence of any pigment. Not only that, that image doesn't go all the way through the cloth, which is about an 1/8 inch thick. It only
Right.
goes a tiny little bit in and stops.
Right.
That
Well, that was
it's a
one of the other.
picture.
Well, one of the other really great arguments for the validity of it is they took, I guess they had used the photographic evidence that was done to do a 3D topographic scan on it. And what occurred, I was looking for the actual machine. I don't know. It's not. Oh, it's called the VPS Image Analyzer. Okay. Now, this is a weapons level, military grade image analyzing machine. And what it does is it takes these flat images and it creates a topographical map. And the reason why, what a topographical map is, if anyone doesn't know, is
Oh,
instead of
that's
a flat
cool.
map, this a topographical map shows the ups and
Yeah,
downs
like a
and
3D
3D.
from the side. Yeah.
Like elevations.
The image itself that was taken in the 30s, which is the first place that this had been looked at, the image itself created a topographical 3-dimensional image. Any other image that you take, a picture, it does not create that. The reason that it does is because of the shadowings and the blacks and the whites within the picture itself. The computer recognized as it being something that was formed wrapped around over a 3-dimensional surface. So in other words, if you took someone's face and you opened it up, which is basically what this is, and made it flat, okay, when a computer can tell that the aspects of the image are spread out, that they're not natural. So then what it does is it tries to take those and create the 3-dimensional that the image would be a natural look for the image. That's in a nutshell. That's what this tries to do.
Do you have
if
that
think
image?
about
Do you have that
yes,
image?
I'm gonna post it.
Yeah,
Absolutely, I'll
cool.
post it. So basically, what this machine did is it said, if I take a picture of Bill right now and I feed it into the machine, it's going to give me a flat response. Okay, but if I take, let's say, I don't even know how else we would do it. If I painted your face with white powder and I put a black cloth over your face, and then I took it off and I took a picture of that and fed it into the machine, that would give us a 3-dimensional
Yeah.
analysis because
That's a
it
great
analyzed
that's a
that.
great
Yeah.
analogy. Yeah. Yeah.
So why is this important? I mean, everybody can say, "Oh, this is all great stuff," but why is it important? It's important because it adds to the fact that this wasn't laid down as a flat surface and someone created it on a table.
Yeah, somebody didn't
This was
paint on
actually
it.
wrapped around someone, and however we want to say, so even if you skip the gamma or the X-ray or whatever that is, this image, which has no paint or pigment, as Bill said, was created wrapped around someone's body. That's the only way that the image could be created on the fabric.
Which is
And
impossible,
that
and no one's been able to replicate it in human history. Nobody can do it. So,
nobody can forge the quote unquote forgery. So
well, you can't. Nobody can forge God's fingerprint. I mean, it is. I'm 100% under. So we can go to the Grail now, but just to hear, my personal perspective is real, 100% authentic. When Jesus was resurrected from that tomb, I don't know the process, what he did. Yes, there was some kind of major power, radioactive electrical blast, a burst of energy that made Jesus come back to life. Then he became like almost 3-dimensional, where he was able to walk out of this tomb as a human, but a ghost. I mean, I don't know exactly what. All I'm saying is that shroud, I think God intended to leave behind a mark that would be a mystery for all of humanity and a bit of a wink to humanity and say, hey, listen, Jesus is real. Some will believe and some won't. I'm assuming, Bill, you believe. What do you think? What is your final prognosis, Anthony?
Well, I think from a scientific standpoint, I believe that it is an image of a crucified man from the first century. I don't think it is a
Forgery.
a forgery. I don't believe anything about it doesn't make me think it's a forgery. And in fact, everything is to the absolute opposite. The one big issue was the carbon dating, which was excused by the
Right.
repairs, and now it's even defeated by the new analysis that they've done. So, from a scientific standpoint, I believe it is a valid shroud of a man who was crucified in the first century. From a spiritual standpoint, I don't know of any other historical character who would
Could
be
leave behind that's something like
would
that.
be able to do something like this. So,
Right, right.
The
I
thing
go
that
from
always
point
reminds
A
me,
to point
though,
C and touch all the points in between. I believe that it is the valid image of Jesus Christ. I believe that the blood traces left behind on the cloth are the
Sure.
blood of Christ, and I don't see any. I haven't found any evidence to the contrary. Jesus is not a mythological figure. Every religion and
No, he's
every
real. Yeah.
whether
Bill,
you
what were you
believe.
saying? What did you
I'm
say,
sorry,
Bill?
the
I was
thing I find
rambling
intriguing
on.
is that there's in the story of the crucifixion, there's a woman that goes up and wipes his face when he's still on the cross, and it said that the cloth bore an image of his face, right? But that's
Yes,
not this, because it was just a
that's
cloth.
not
She didn't wrap his whole
right.
freaking body while he's up there. But
Yeah,
to me, that's when I
right.
first saw it and I was a kid. That's what I thought this was. But there's
Right.
really no serious hardcore mention of this shroud in the Bible, or it's not part of the story. I mean, that there was a
The
shroud.
only
It's not even
place that
God's
it's
image.
mentioned, the only place that it's mentioned is in terms of a shroud that Joseph gave his, and that he was wrapped in the shroud.
Hmm.
That's the
Right, but
only
they
place
even
that it's
mentioned the
mentioned.
bore his image in the other one, which is I
Yes,
find it odd that it's omitted.
yes.
Well,
Oh,
it
so are
does.
you seeing it then?
I'm just being devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
No, no.
And
I
being
love
devil's
that too.
advocate, yeah, it's a pretty important
That's
note.
Gunnar will tell
This
you. I
this
usually won't admit to this, so.
Yeah, I was surprised. But you're going to be a Christian by the time I'm done. I'm just saying.
I'm a Catholic. What are you talking about? But this show to me is from a scientific standpoint,
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
and
Objective.
and of course, and spiritually, of course, I love everything that we touch on. It's got immense spiritual backbone to it. But I'm not. I'm not going to be closed minded about it. I don't see anything to the contrary that should make me believe that this is anything else but what it's purported to be, and it's as
Yeah,
simple as
I
that.
agree.
And
I agree. Bill, you agree?
I would agree.
so this is
Yeah,
the
good.
little. This is the replica, and I'm going to do a better picture. But this is the picture from the 30s
Yeah.
that they used to actually create the. And the camera follows me. I'm sorry, but
Yeah, the negative.
so
That's
I'm going to
pretty
actually.
cool.
I'll post the a good replica of that up online too.
I want one of those. I get one day. That's cool.
So ground.
Yes, nice. The chalice.
This is this is so we can go right from here, and we can come back to the shroud on another show if people have other questions, because there is really a lot of other things to discuss about it. But I thought the two of these things together, it's important, and really more so for the Templar tie together. And so let me just go from the shroud into this. In that, the thing that I found in my research that I did not know and I had never heard before is one of the ways the Templar, for those people who don't know, were in the Crusades. They were holy soldiers who guarded pilgrims to the Holy Land. So when Christians went to visit the tomb of Jesus and things like that on Temple Mount, they would protect them. They would hold their jewels and money for them. We've talked about this on other episodes. The Templar became so powerful, and I would love to do a full show on the Templar. At least one, maybe two, would be needed.
Yeah, we
But
certainly can do that.
the what happened was they became so powerful that the King of France owed them a tremendous amount of money, and in turn, the Pope. Okay, so I'm sure a lot of people know this, but Friday the 13th was the day that they were rounded up and they were burned at the stake by France rather than paying back the money. And the reason that the way that they were able to get away with this is they said they were heretics. And one of the things they accused them of
Wow.
was worshiping a head, and it sometimes was called the bearded man, and other times they said it was the head of John the Baptist, the actual physical preserved head. or the other people said it was a satanic, which is what the French government and the church went towards. That it was Baphomet, it was a goat head, a bearded goat head. Anyway, what I did in my research was the suggestion was that they were in possession of the shroud as one of the many artifacts they found at Temple Mount, and that what they were actually worshiping was the image, which was the bearded man on the Shroud of Turin, and that was the icon that they had been worshiping, and that it wasn't something pagan or satanic, that it was actually the image, and that the church and the French government found out that that was one of the things that they had, and they wanted it because, as we said, the shroud ends up going to France.
Right.
That's where it ends up. So to lead into the Templar, the Grail has really come to light a lot since Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code. I'm not going to do any spoilers if people haven't seen it, but he had a fairly unique theory. It was out there before, but he really expounded on it a lot, where the Grail wasn't an actual cup or a physical object, but it was a person that would carry on the bloodline of Jesus. And without getting into too much detail again, because I don't know, I mean, most people probably know the story by now, but that Jesus had a child, and that bloodline was what was considered the Grail, and that it ran through the front.
Bill's a descendant. Look at him.
He loves the way you look at it.
Bill, bro, could you imagine though? I mean, what would that be ironic?
Yeah, I don't think that's my heritage, but
you never know. So wait, before you go any further, tell me what exactly is the history of the Holy Grail? Like, I don't know it, the Holy Grail. I know what it is, but like, where did it come from and why?
Okay, so the Grail could be from the traditional legend. It could be two different things, or it could be both. First of all, it could be the cup that Jesus used at the Last Supper, which becomes part of the communion process in the Christian church, the cup of Christ, and the blood into the wine into blood, and that whole process. The Da Vinci Code itself, the use of the word Da Vinci was because of his painting, which showed the Last Supper and the cup, and the person they said was probably a woman in this that no one noticed before. The other thing that it could be, or like I said, could be both things, is the cup that caught the blood of Jesus when he was stabbed with the spear of destiny. It was said to be the cup that caught his blood that was falling. So it could be either of those things, or it could all be the same cup, which I think is what a lot of theologians believe it to be, all the same cup. Whether it's, we all went through the Indiana Jones with is it a carpenter's cup, or is it a jeweled, beautiful, chalice? It was probably something more like this,
a something like that.
And it does tie into Dan Brown's story about the bowl and the pagan symbolism of man and woman, and what the bowl represents, or the cup as we've changed it to. So it does have some significance there in terms of a personification. But for our purposes, I was looking to discuss the things that the Templar probably came into contact with, if we believe that they found a lot of the holy relics. And the Grail would be one of them, the Ark, which we discussed last time, possibly the Shroud, the Ring of Solomon, which Solomon was given by God, which allowed him to control the angels and the demons, which helped him build the Temple Mount and all those great things. But that's why I really wanted to tie in the Grail with the Shroud, because it's probably part of this massive treasure trove of powerful religious relics that the Templar found, and it really could be a key if we believe in the magic.
They found it? Wait, do you think they found it, or do you think they were given it? Like, you know what I mean?
I think they found it. I think they went to were they able to find it when others couldn't? One of the legends is, if you're not a righteous man, the cup will turn to dust in front of you. I guess from that standpoint, they could have been pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, it was given. Yeah, that's what I meant.
but everything was buried or secreted away. We have, which leads into the copper scroll, which is a scroll that was actually found in the Qumran caves where the Dead Sea Scrolls were. This is actually a treasure map scroll, which I would love to do a show on because it's part of my book series. It's a big
Oh
part of
yeah,
it.
we'll save that
The
one. We'll
copper
definitely do it.
scroll the copper scroll probably was a map to where a lot of these things had been hidden by the Hebrew
Templar.
priests
Right.
on the set. No, where the priests had hid it. So now the
Yeah.
Templar, there was probably multiple of these maps. Now the Templar had these maps, but there was a division of the Templar which spent all these years just digging under Temple Mount,
Mm-hmm.
and they
Talked about
seem to
that.
be indestructible. They seem to be able to incur tremendous amounts of wealth. And so there's really a belief that they had some type of divine intervention for being soldiers of God, that they were protected, and what happened to them was very interesting in and of itself. It has lasted all this time in Friday the 13th, like I said, and I think it's something that we should definitely hit on again.
Is the Templar you talking about?
Yeah, the Templar
Yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
all,
Yeah. We need to do a
all the
whole show on the Templar.
yeah.
That definitely want to do. So in a nutshell, in like based on your research, where what is the most probable like outcome of the Holy Grail today? Like where is it? And does it
Well,
exist? Do you think?
the legend said that Joseph of Arimathea again, he took the
Same
Grail
one.
and was told by God to bring it to the English islands. Believe it or not, and there's a whole religious ceremony involved with in England. I believe it's that when Joseph of Arimathea made it to the shores of England, he stuck his staff in the soil, and a tree grew. And this, I believe it's called the Glatterberry or Glatterberry tree. The same tree they say still exists today. It only flowers on Christmas and Easter, and it is so revered that every year there's a
Oh,
ceremony at the tree where they cut a piece of the tree and they give it to the Queen for Christmas as a symbol of this everlasting tree of life, that was created by, I guess, the contents of the
Joseph.
cup and Joseph's rod created
Oh,
this tree. So this tree
is
apparently
there a
still
picture
exists.
of this tree? Can you pull up a picture of
Yes,
this
I'm
tree?
going to put up. Yeah, it was. I
Come
had just
on,
found this
man.
for
Bill,
our
did you
show.
hear that? This freaking tree only blossoms on Easter and Christmas. It's 2,000 years old. And Joseph, who gave his shroud to Jesus, the dead Jesus, is the one who stuck the staff in and this tree come up. Come on now. God's real. I'm just saying.
Wait, are you two having this argument? I didn't know you were.
No. I'm having an argument with anybody who happens to listen to this thing. I know Bill believes. I'm just saying anyone who happens to listen to this and have any doubt. I'm like, dude, God is like I've had miracles in my life that are like almost as miraculous as what you just said. I'll tell you at another time. I just posted a video, and in the video I talked about the butterfly, this miracle I have with the butterfly. But I mean, just like things like that are just absolutely improbable. And no matter what, if you took a mathematician and said, "What are the odds of this happening?" Like seriously, do the mathematical odds of what the probability of this happening. They would come back and go, "Well, after all my research as a mathematician, my odds are impossible. It couldn't happen." But it did though.
Right.
So if it did happen, then now there's only one explanation. And they're God's real. So that's what I'm going. Some of these things happening like this. If that tree's still around, it's pretty good idea that God is real and it was a divine thing that happened. So I
Sure.
just want
Sure.
to I just want to take a sip out of the God, that Holy Grail. I want.
Like there's always some folklore involved in stories like this. The things we don't know about
Sure.
the Grail, that it was even a cup that looked like that. It could have been a bowl, right? And
Of
like
Yeah.
Indiana
course.
Jones, it's clever. He's like, it's a cup of a carpenter. They weren't drinking in Nazareth, okay? A room was prepared for Jesus, who was very famous at the time. He's a rock star, you know? So it
Mhm.
could have been a really freaking nice goblet, you know? Somebody saying, hey, I'm going to put you guys up. They don't know the significance of it, but it could have been a really
Right.
nice place. Although they
I
were
like
kind of
mine.
hiding out too.
Yeah, I like that one there. I like to think it looks like that.
Context, you know what I mean? And like I said, if
I
it was a
agree.
cup
I
that
agree
had
with you,
place
Bill.
in
I
it,
have
why
no
be a
idea.
bowl?
Yeah.
Could have
So
been a
hard
bowl.
to catch his blood in a cup if it's coming from the cross. More likely
Right.
a big bowl.
A bowl.
So
Sure.
you know, I mean, it's so hard to know.
Absolutely.
You know,
And how many cups
in my
did he drink
mind,
out of? Are they all? You know, is every cup he ever drank out of a a miraculous
The Holy
thing.
Grail.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Holy Grail. Now, it's worth noting that there have been a lot of legends of healing and miracles surrounding the Shroud of Turin. People say they were healed of cancer or
Really?
whatever the hell, when they're around the Turin. So
Well,
Wow.
Bill, stop bringing on my Holy Grail parade. I think I think
just trying to
The Holy Grail looks like that one he has. All right, there's only one of them. When he was stabbed in the side with the spear, it squirted right into the cup. They caught it. Why? Because God made sure it went perfectly into the cup. And then he drank it, passed it around, and boom, somewhere out there
So it's
it
not the
is.
cup from the Last Supper; it's the cup from the crucifixion. Unless you think
Well,
it's
it
the
could be
same
it
cup
could be
floating
both. It
around.
could be
It
both.
could be both. It could
Yeah.
be both. You don't know,
Who brought it?
huh?
Who brought it?
You, Mary.
Joseph had it. Oh no, Joseph wasn't the one who was supposed to have caught the blood,
John
right?
might have brought it, I guess, right? Because he's the only one
Yeah.
who was there.
Mary was
Hmm.
there.
Yeah, Mary was there
Because-
later. Yeah. No, she was there during it. Yeah, because she said, "Behold,
yeah,
your
his
son, behold
mom.
your
She was
mother."
there.
And
She
she's
might
like,
have been
"Look,
there
you
with the
got
whole.
cup from the Last Supper."
Yeah, like maybe God inspired her. Maybe God said, "Listen, Mary, bring the cup, man. We're gonna need
Mother
this for
God
later."
saved the cup.
Get right, Gunner. 2,000 years from now, Gunner's gonna be going. You're gonna get a debate over this. So make sure you got that cup. She's gonna be like, "Who's Gunner?
They're
My son's
sweeping it
dying
up,
over
and
here."
the guy that owns that room goes, "Hey, that's my cup. The cup's there.
Yeah, right. Where you going with my cup?
You're gonna lose your deposit on this place."
All right, and I think there we'll end with we'll see you next time with Bigfoot, right?
Right. I don't know. Are we going? Are we going to see Bigfoot next time? We're going to talk about Bigfoot.
Yeah, let's do Bigfoot.
All right, let's see Bigfoot. There's a lot of good stuff, though. I mean, I think the Templars, great stuff. There's so much stuff to go into.
Together though, yeah.
But I do like Bigfoot because I just had this debate. A guy from my church, we're going to my church, he's driving, and I basically mentioned my Bigfoot encounter or whatever happened, and I could tell he doesn't believe me, and I'm just like, okay, explain it away. Explain what happened to me. And he's like, I'm like, well, I'll tell the story. So now in the next show, we'll talk about
Yeah, tell a
Bigfoot.
story on the next one.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll tell him.
It's hard if you're not there to, go.
Yeah, so I'll explain it on the next one, and then you can kind of give me your thoughts and based on your research and whatever. Bill, I don't know if you're going to join us, but if you do, cool. You're always welcome, and bring your thoughts and ideas on Bigfoot. So everybody else, stay tuned. We're going to be posting the next riddle. So I guess we could post the riddle we'll do it on our community here. I'll post it on a community for this channel, and I'll post it on our social media and post it around. If you're smarter than me, then you'll probably get the riddle, and you get a crack at getting a giant dinosaur tooth, a real dinosaur tooth, which is cool as hell, in a frame. So I mean, how many people can say they got a freaking giant dinosaur tooth? You know what I'm saying? That's gangster. I'm just saying. So for now, God bless everybody. Have a great week. We're going to try our best to have one show a week, and the next one's going to be Bigfoot, so stay tuned. This one will be out in a couple days after it's edited. Tony does a great job editing. He's become the master. It makes me feel like a loser that I can't do as good as him. But whatever. I mean, some people are good at things. I'm not. God bless. We'll see you next time, and we're out. That's another one of Dragon's Sword, Ancient Myths, Legends, and Lore. But make sure to check out his books. We'll run the link here and in the description of this stuff. Dragonstorm Gates and Abracadabra, which is the second sequel, and he's working on a sequel to that one. So make sure to check out his books. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we go?
Have a wonderful week.
God bless everyone. We'll see you next time. We're out.
You have chosen wisely.